Environmental regulations are supposed to protect us, right? Isn't that what we want to believe? It's supposed to make the air safe, the water safe for us and our families. Isn't that what we hope and frankly what we expect? But is that really true? Well, the answer is no, it's not. And here's the reason why. Is because at every step in the process that leads to environmental regulation, what we see is the heavy dominant influence of the very polluting industries that the regulations are supposed to protect us against. There's really three levels to that process, and I want to talk about each one of them. One is the science, the scientific studies that feed into the regulation. Another is the regulatory agencies like the EPA, for example, that are supposed to make and enforce the regulations. And then the third one is lawmakers, politicians, people in office who make the laws that drive the regulations. I want to talk about industry influence on each one of those. So let's talk about science and how that influences regulation. Well, what happens is that scientists do studies. They study how dangerous a chemical is, they study its impact on human beings, and then they publish reports that describe their findings, and usually publish not only to other scientists, but also to regulators, also to industry. This isn't something the public usually sees, but it sure does have a lot of influence in regulation because regulators look at these studies to determine how safe or dangerous a chemical is. What's the problem? The problem is that the scientists, so-called, who do these studies are very often in the United States the hand-picked scientist consultants for the polluting industry. Now, why is that? Why would that ever be so? Why would we allow that? Well, the main reason is there is so much money involved in regulation and in everything that feeds into regulation, like scientific studies that describe how dangerous a chemical is. There is so much money that those people who make the money, who profit off of these chemicals, cannot keep their hands off of it because they have so much at stake. And we're talking about tens or hundreds of billions of dollars annually. So for as disgusting as the practice is, of course, these polluters are going to do everything they can to control the science, and they do. As I said a moment ago, they oftentimes hire the consultants that do the studies. They pay them. Sometimes these studies are done by lobbyists for the chemical industry, whose very business is to make sure that these giant companies can use and emit into our environment as much of the chemical as possible. All of that scientific process in the United States of America is tilted in that direction and away from protecting the people. So all regulation starts with science. Science is in control of industry. What industry? The industries that pollute and make billions of dollars off of the difference between how much they can use and how much they can't. Now, after the science, we have to talk about the regulations themselves, or really the regulatory agencies that are supposed to make and enforce these environmental regulations that are supposed to protect us. Who are these regulators? So we're talking again about agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency. And throughout the country, the various states in the nation have an environmental protection agency. It's not always called by that same name, but that's really what it is, and that's what it's supposed to do. And then, of course, we have it at the federal agency. But who are the people who run those agencies? And whose side are they on? And whose bidding do they think they're supposed to be doing? Well, here's what we all need to understand about who's running these agencies. Very frequently, they are political appointees. So in Washington, D.C., for example, if you have a president in office who is a friend to big industry, a friend to big polluters, the people that run the EPA are going to be friends to big polluters. We saw that with the Trump administration at every level of political appointment in the federal EPA. It was friends of industry, often executives who came from polluting industries. That's what happens. That explains why when we see in a government regulatory agency that is charged with protecting our health and making and enforcing regulations that protect our health, that's not what they're there to do. They're there to protect the profits of the polluting industries that they came from. What we also see is when somebody works at a government agency, EPA for example, for a number of years, and they want to leave the agency, they want to go make more money, where's the most logical place for them to get employed? Polluting industries that they supposedly have been regulating for years. Those are the most likely employers. So the bottom line, in these government regulatory agencies, they are stocked with executives who used to work for polluters or who one day will work for polluters, and that's their mindset. Their mindset is to protect the profit-making ability of polluters, not to protect our lives and our health. The third phase of environmental regulation, and the reason why environmental regulations do not protect us, is they typically derive from laws. The law comes first, and then you have the regulation. Who makes the laws? Politicians. How do politicians get in office? Well, they have to get elected. How do they get elected? In the United States of America, especially at the federal level, they raise a ton of money, and that's how they wind up in office. Who's got that money? Who has the incentive to want to give a lot of money to people running for office so that the people, when elected to office, do the bidding of their campaign contributors? Who's got that kind of dough? Well, polluters for one, large companies, right? And who do we have on the other side? We have the large companies who pollute, who want to use ever more dangerous quantities of chemicals, who want to emit out into the atmosphere ever larger quantities of the pollutants. We've got them on this side, and we've got over here the people who have to endure all this, the people who are exposed to these chemicals, the people who have to drink them and breathe them and take showers in them, these people here. And we know who they are. We know who these people are. These people are typically the poor, and specifically poor minorities throughout the United States. They don't have the power, they don't have the resources, they don't have the money to elect people to really expensive offices. And I'm talking about offices that cost tens of millions of dollars to get elected to. So when industry supplies politicians with the tens of millions of dollars necessary to win office, and they get in office, and the poor folks who have been exposed to these dangerous chemicals haven't given any money at all because they don't have it to give, who does the politician respond to in office? And the laws get made by those kinds of politicians to benefit whom? To benefit the very people and industry that you would think. It's the polluters. So we've got laws that are stacked in favor of polluters. We got regulations which are stacked in favor of polluters and run by current and former and future executives for polluters, and all based on science, very frequently performed by hand-picked consultants of polluting industries. Is it any wonder when you see all that polluting industry control of all phases of the regulatory process that we have regulations that protect polluters' profits and do not protect our lives and health?